Hello everybody and welcome to the show. Happy Friday. Hope you're all having fun hanging out today. We're going to get into a few very interesting stories. First, we have a video going viral of a ton of young women saying, we don't need no man. I don't want no man in my life, nor do I need him. And when we circle over to the men, they're telling a much different story. We're going to unpack that as it's been getting a lot of different reviews and comments on social media. Plus, Microsoft in their diversity and inclusion report is stating that they are actively paying white employees less than their employees of color plus employees of marginalized identities. Then we have Fox News saying that Trump has done something for the black voter in creating his new Trump sneaker. No, I'm not kidding, and we're gonna call him out just as equally as we do the left. Plus, Netflix has put out their live action Avatar: The Last Airbender. I went ahead and watched a little bit of it. We're gonna talk about that as there's been many conversations drumming up around this new adaptation, and the original creators left the scene. So much to talk about there. Before we get into all that, we have Taylor in Nashville.
Hey, yeah, man-hating, discriminating against white people. So glad to be here to discuss these issues that have no relevance to me whatsoever.
Yeah, Taylor, you're gonna have a fun time on today's show. Let's start off with the apparent man-hating that is happening. Here's a video that's getting millions of views all over the interwebs, okay, of young women being asked how they feel when it comes to needing a man, and then young men getting asked the same question in regard to women.
Do we need men? Do we need men?
No.
Do we need men?
No.
No?
We don't need short men.
Do you need a man?
No.
Need a man?
Oh, God.
Do you need a man?
No.
Do we need men?
No.
Why?
No.
Do we need men?
No.
No? Do we need men?
We need men to make us stupid.
Do we need men? Do we need men? Do women need men in this world? Do we need men?
No.
Why?
Because we can be strong, independent women.
Do we need men?
Like, not necessarily, but like, if I can look at them, like, we need a man to look at.
Do we need men?
No!
No, why?
Nobody needs men!
Really?
We do not need men!
Why not? Why don't we need men?
Why would I need men?
So what can you get from someone else that you don't get from a man?
The only thing I can get from a man that I can't get anywhere else is dick.
Okay.
And I don't need dick.
Do we need women?
Yes,
We do. Why?
these women are awesome.
Do we need women?
Of course,
Why?
they're beautiful.
Do we need women?
Women make us feel compassionate and affectionate.
Do we need women?
Of course we do.
Do we need women?
Yes.
Why?
Because they're hot.
And what else?
They're hot.
Do we need women?
I mean, shit, unless you're gay.
Do we need women?
Do we need women?
Yeah.
Yes, who's gonna do my dishes?
Oh my goodness. Okay. So we're getting lots of mixed responses when it comes to these questions. First, let's address the women and then we will address the men, because I'm actually going to say within some of those men's answers, I think might be a little bit of the roots of the issue and might be exactly why we're getting answers from these women of, no, I don't need men. I'm a strong, independent woman. I only want men for the D, which is actually what one of them said. And she said, and I don't even want that at the end of the day, even though she was wearing a top that would state otherwise. Now, we are in this new modern era where feminism has taken a totally different spin on things. It used to be that men and women are equal, we deserve equal opportunity, but we're not the same. And those differences not necessarily should be emphasized, but at the very least should be acknowledged. Does that mean we should be treated differently, that we deserve less opportunity, that we shouldn't be able to vote, that we shouldn't be able to work? No, it just means that, you know, we're different in some very fundamental ways that I think we should be able to acknowledge and talk about and discuss, and still we should have ample opportunity in this world and not be treated differently on the basis of sex. Now, feminism has taken on a whole new turn, and it is promiscuity, and I don't need no man, and F the beauty standard, and women can do all the things that a man can do. In fact, we do them better. And while that sort of utopian view towards womanhood and femininity is, you know, fun to hear and engage with, I guess, to some extent, it's by no means the truth. And now we're living in a world where we're experiencing this polarity of women hating men, saying they don't need men, which we know is just not the case. And then men in tandem also either having like this super feminized respect for women or absolutely going in the other direction and saying, you know, we don't need women, or they're 304s and they're for the streets. And this is going to continue so long as we remain on this trajectory. I want to challenge some of these women that are saying they don't need men. And I think a lot of what we've seen in this video with these women is it's performative. They're probably going home to hopefully good fathers, brothers, they have male friends in their lives, and based on some of the outfits that they're wearing out on this night out, it seems like some of them are even angling to find male attention. So there's something there. I think at the end of the day, these women do want to find healthy relationships. They probably want to be married, or at the very least find long-term relationships with their male counterparts. Yet when asked whether or not they need men, they say no. Now I can understand thinking to yourself, well, I shouldn't need anybody. I should be independent. I should be able to stand on my own 2 feet and take care of myself. And yes, there's something to be said for that. But men and women are both necessary in the society that we live in. We engage with each other. Men are the yin to the yang, if you will. And we need men to fulfill what men fulfill at the end of the day. Whether or not you've been convinced to dislike them or hate them, or you're convinced that they're toxically masculine, they are still very much necessary and needed. And I don't know what their experiences have been with men, that they have this new agenda that they're colored by, or this new lens that they're looking at the world through. But I'm chilling. I have some very good men in my life. And I feel bad for these women that maybe they don't have that. When you find a good man who takes care of you, who has morals and values, who's smart, who's funny, who's charming, all these different things, I think it completely recolors your world in terms of how you view the differences between men and women, how you view your place in the world as a woman, and maybe some of the disdain you might feel for your male counterparts. And a lot of that is, it's just propaganda at the end of the day. And I hope that these women go out to eventually find the men that are going to recolor their worldview for them and maybe change their perspective on what masculinity is and what it can be. And it's unfortunate that that hasn't happened so far for them. Yeah.
What's your level of concern, Amala, based on seeing this video? We saw a ton of reaction on the internet going out, and then just watching it yourself. It does betray a little bit of a mentality or an ideology that seems to be, like you said, polarizing men against women. But there's also an element that we were talking before the show a little bit of these women are going to learn, and they are probably all going to end up in relationships of one kind or another. And they're probably saying this in a tongue-in-cheek manner to the camera, just playing off of some of these cultural narratives right now that are saying we need to be strong, independent women. And that's kind of like the default answer to go with. So is this like more of a nothing burger, or does this represent something that we should actually genuinely be concerned about in society right now?
I mean, okay, so I stand on the fence on this one. I'm kind of like 50-50. I think there's like 50% of women who are truly starting to believe these things and have a really toxic views towards men and masculinity. And then the other 50% of that, I think, is largely performative. They're on camera. They know what the script is. The script is that you're an independent woman who doesn't need no man, and that's what you say. But when you go home at night after you've been out to the bar and you've been out to the club and you didn't find the guy you were looking for, these women are quaking. They are literally quaking in their boots thinking, am I going to find a boyfriend? Am I going to find my husband? And guaranteed, whether or not they admit it, that is what many of them are thinking about. They are thinking about the possibility of finding a good man. They are trying to put themselves in the position to find a good man. And I do not believe them when they say, I don't need a man. I'm not looking for anybody. All men suck. I don't want a boyfriend. Yes, you do. Yes, you do. Be so for real right now. And that's why I say, as soon as they find a man who is what they deem to be worthy of their affection, watch as all of this stuff starts to simmer down and, be thrown out the window. Now, the issue is, if you're leading with this whole like strong, independent, don't need a man, men suck attitude, it's going to be really tough to find a man who wants to put up with that and deal with that in the first place. So you're kind of saving face for the sake of appearing as a strong, independent, I don't need no man woman, and it's actually going to turn off actual good men. I think if you put out bad energy into the world, a lot of what you're going to receive is bad energy, meaning that your encounters with men are going to start to become more negative, the more negatively you view men as, as a whole. So it's going to be a self-fulfilling prophecy, I think. If you say men suck and it's all of them and they're all disgusting and I don't need them, you're going to come to find that that's exactly how your life turns out. So you need to put a positive spin on things, even if your experiences haven't been positive. I, for one, you all know, grew up largely without a father in my life. I did have a father figure in my grandpa, and for a large portion of my young life, I let that color the way that I viewed men as a whole. And that would be from outside influence and external forces who were saying that men suck, or, they're not to be bothered with, or they'll always manipulate, or they'll always leave you. And you get that as a young woman and you go, oh my gosh, well, that's right. I need to keep my guard up at all times. Men are all manipulative. Men are all horrible. And as soon as you open yourself up to the possibility that that is not true, you're probably going to find much better men, because you're willing to give good men the time of day. So if you're not willing to give any man the time of day, you're going to shield off good and bad. And that's never going to work out.
Yeah, it seems like even within this video, there were girls that you could tell were maybe just playfully saying it, and then other girls who kind of meant it more and have seemed to buy into the ideology harder. And I would just surmise that the more that you take on this ideology hook, line, and sinker, the deeper you hold on to this idea that I don't need men, that all men are trash, that all men are horrible, violent, rapists, colonizers, whatever.
Yep.
The less likely you are to have positive outcomes in your life, and the more you're kind of robbing yourself of the opportunity for something great that most human beings, man or woman, naturally tend to want. And you can always say that, yeah, some people do find happiness in singleness and a career life or whatever, but generally speaking, most people want to end up in a monogamous, committed relationship and find great meaning in that. It's also how we happen to perpetuate the species, so there's something to be said for that. And I think it is, like, to answer my own question from earlier, there is a level of concern when it comes to that, when you look at declining birth rates and just the polarized environment that we have between men and women. It seems like women are less happy nowadays, men are less happy nowadays. And I think the pervasiveness of this mentality, of this ideology, that is, we could put a lot of it under modern day feminism, is responsible for. But I just think you're robbing yourself of good mates when you're constantly beating men down, and you're robbing yourself of that opportunity for happiness.
Yeah, and it's not to put all the blame too on modern feminism and women with this mentality. There's also clearly blame to be shared with men who are engaging with women under false pretenses, manipulating them, cheating on them. I don't think women go into this mentality blindly without any poor experiences with men, and that they've somehow just been convinced that all men suck because somebody told them so. I think they are using their personal experiences or what they're seeing externally to paint an entire picture of men. And there are many that will say, maybe men need to pick up the slack a little bit and start engaging in ways that make them come off as trustworthy. And that's not to say that all men don't. There are plenty of good men out there. I managed to find one myself, but I find myself lucky in having found somebody. Now, the women on Twitter are hopping on and saying, these are women that I would befriend in a heartbeat. One of these replies got 148,000 likes. It says, women hate men because men oppress, harass, assault, rape, and abuse women. Men have made women hate them. Now, like I said, there's something to be said for this. If you have negative experiences with men, some people will jump to the conclusion of using that to paint all men. If you get bitten by a dog, do you view all dogs as a threat? Probably not. You can use a million other examples to make that very same analogy, I guess. But we have to inject nuance into our conversations. And at the end of the day, I think these women are doing it in their personal lives. I do think they are looking for men. I do think they have brothers and fathers and uncles and cousins who they would characterize as being good men. So they know that there are men out there that exist, just maybe in their personal experiences they've yet to receive that. And a lot of it comes with maturity too. All of these girls are in their, teens and their 20s. So you're figuring out the world. Men are figuring out the world. They're making the mistakes that come along with relationships. You're making the mistakes that come along with relationships. You're getting to know yourselves and others at the same time. And there's something to be said for maturing out of this mentality as well, where in their probably 30s and 40s, they're going to come to realize, oh yeah, well, not all men. I hate to say not all men, but yeah, not all men are like this. It's just a simple fact. It's the truth. They'll get it.
Yeah, and the sweeping generalizations of all men are bad or all women are bad are sort of signs of either probably some kind of immaturity or some kind of dysfunction that you have not yet processed. And you're right that when you come to a place of maturity, you don't think in these rigid, sweeping terms about everything and cast these judgments based on your subjective experiences or something that's been taught to you about patriarchy, blah, 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 and let that color your whole view of the world. You come to learn that there are good men, there are bad men, there are good women, there are bad women, and you come to value a sense of balance that yes, men have certain qualities, women have certain qualities. We are alike in many ways. We are different in many ways. We are complementary in many ways. And finding happiness in that harmony is, to me, the mark of a more mature mindset. And having these rigid categories and making these sweeping judgments is usually a sign of some kind of bitterness on your part or ideological buy-in.
Yep. And the men, they have growing to do. You guys heard it in some of these answers. Some of the men said, oh, of course we need women. They're awesome. Or I love women. Or, I think women are great. Other ones were like, duh, we need women. They're hot. Yeah, we need women. They're beautiful. And that's the last thing that a 20-something modern day feminist wants to hear. Yeah, we need women. They're hot. So there's clearly some growing and maturing that needs to be done on behalf of men who are probably looking for relationships with women and women who are looking for relationships with men. And they're just not meeting each other at this point. And that's clear in the stats we're seeing around dating. I think like 60% of guys are saying they're having trouble finding a relationship. 50% of them in the younger ages, I believe 18 to 25, are saying they're not even approaching women in public to have conversations with them or to engage with them for fear of rejection or getting Me Too'd or all these different things. So I think we're in the midst of a cultural shift where both of the sexes are just completely missing each other, and there's going to be some sort of pendulum swing where they finally collide and things start to make sense. But you have to understand the dynamic between the genders are changing largely. It used to be if you were a man and you had a good job and a good family, you were set, and you were going to find a woman who, or several women that wanted to take the position of being your wife, wanted to stay home with your kids, was going to fulfill a feminine role. And what you had were 20 women who were already willing to take on the feminine role, and you had to choose which of those women you liked the best, essentially, and make sure your families mended well and all that. Now, if you're a man and you have a decent job, a good education, a good family, you have to, find a woman who even wants to take on the feminine role, which you probably have to wade through 100 women to find one who says, oh yeah, that's what I want to do with my life. And then when you meet that woman, you have to figure out whether or not she's the personality for you. She has to figure out if she likes you. So the odds are not stacked in your favor. And odds are she's outperforming you. She's educated more than you are, and she has a totally different dynamic going on in her life, and she expects you to elevate that. So the cards are stacked against you in a lot of ways, and there's just an adjustment period that I think we have to go through and hopefully land in some sort of homeostasis when it comes to dating.
But in the meantime, what's your advice to men who look at the landscape that you've just laid out? Because I think there's a lot of truth to that. How should men respond to an environment like that? Because I do see many resorting to this, red pill or worse, black pill manosphere mentality that's like, I'm never going to have hope, so I'm just going to buy the Apple VR headset, and that's going to be my new reality and have an AI girlfriend. Or they become like the red pill type where it's like, well, screw women, I'm just going to use them and make all the money and take on this mentality that it's all about me being this alpha male and using and exploiting women for my purposes, and I'm not really going to open my heart or care or try to be married because marriage is this unfair scam that they're just going to take all my money and blah, 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 blah. Like, what's the reasonable common sense advice to a good, honest man who just wants to find a good girl right now in this environment?
Dude, just keep getting out there. Just keep going out there. You're gonna find somebody eventually, and it's just gonna, I do think it's just gonna take a lot more work. I'm like going through this with my best friend. She's awesome, and she's like, I'm constantly searching for a man for this girl. Eventually, we're probably gonna do a dating series on this show. I'm gonna set her up like the Bachelorette, and we'll have you guys send in applications, because I remember seeing this this Twitter post or whatever, and there was some post made of like, my friend is looking for some guy to like impregnate her or something, and she was looking for these certain characteristics and like a guy with conservative values who's like unvaccinated or whatever, and this post goes viral on Twitter, and thousands of men are submitting applications to do this with this woman. Now, I do think all of those men ended up being scammed, and it was just some sort of fake scam thing that ended up happening, but you just gotta keep putting yourself out there, I think, and eventually you will find somebody. We could sit here and talk all day about the different dynamics and blame this side or blame that side. There's plenty of blame to be levied out to everybody, but that's just like an exercise in futility. You should continue going out there and working to find the person that you want and working to be the person that you want. And I think eventually things will fall into place. Any time that you spend just like red pilling yourself or blaming women, or this very same for women who are blaming men, is time wasted, where you could be going out there and maybe putting yourself in a position to find the person who defies your expectations when it comes to the opposite sex. So There you go. I don't think the red pill or the blue pill is to be consumed when it comes to this stuff. I'm kind of over it, honestly. Like the back and forth of blaming each other. At the end of the day, we need each other and we need the best of us. So just focus on making yourself a good person instead of, you know, going after those who aren't doing that. Of course, levy criticism and like analyze these things so that people can hopefully see through them and see through the BS and find their way through it. But don't spend your entire life sitting in your angst or your anger and waste what could be useful opportunities for you. Now,
you're reminding me. You're reminding me of how when you talk about like in the racial arena, how it's easy to adopt the victim mentality and say, well, it's the landscape, the way the world is set against me gives me no agency and I can't do anything about it. And I feel like for guys right now in this landscape, it's easy to look at the systemic issues of the marriage laws or no fault divorce or just the way women are, and modern day feminism has set the landscape against us. And there may be, to be fair, there may be truth to a lot of things that are messed up in the landscape right now, but that doesn't mean you don't have agency and that you can't put your best foot forward. And I even say as a man, like, take it as a challenge and you say, okay, well, am I going to be one that has what it takes to rise to the top and make a life for myself and get the one that I want? You can either do that and put yourself out there, or you can just drink the bitter pill of despair and take that and just wallow in it. And I don't think that that's going to get you anywhere. So I don't think adopting the victimhood mentality is the way to go.
Probably not. Now, since we are still in the midst of Black History Month, we're going to talk some racial dynamics. You all know on this show we talked about Google Gemini and the discrimination that was unearthed on that AI software, where people were essentially asking Google Gemini, can you populate a photo of a white family? And Google Gemini would give you like a diverse Black Hispanic family. Or you could ask Google Gemini, could you show me images of British royalty? And the British royalty were for some reason Black and brown and trans and like all this stuff was going on. Or show a picture of Australian women and all of them look indigenous, not a single white woman to be seen. There was clearly some bias injected into that operating system, and even it would tell you itself, we are going to give you diverse examples of what you're asking for. Now, this blew up on the internet and people were calling out Google, not just Google Gemini, but Google at large. We all know that Google is good at injecting bias, and so far they've been doing it in an undetectable manner. I often recommend, if you want to hear about the bias that Google can give you as far as your search results, you should watch a documentary called The Creepy Line. It's available online somewhere. Definitely look into it. It's insane. But it drummed up so much controversy, and people were sharing this all over the internet, that actually a senior executive at Google reached out to Elon Musk, and they spoke for an hour last night because X was the platform largely responsible for making this clear to the public. And he assured Elon that they are taking immediate action to fix the racial and gender bias in Gemini. Time will tell, Elon says. Do I believe Google on this? No. If anything, what I think they're going to do is find a way to make the bias and racial and gender discrimination undetectable. So they're going to make it, I think, far more subtle. That will be my prediction, because they came out of the gate swinging with this one, with you asking for a white family and getting a Black one in return. I think they were intending for the bias to be much slighter than what you actually ended up experiencing on the operating system. And now they're going to go in and fix this issue that they're now experiencing. Google can't be trusted, y'all. They simply cannot be trusted. And they went out a little over their skis, I think, now. But this is just a learning lesson for them, and they're going to learn to fine-tune this technology in a way where the bias that you receive will be undetectable even to you. And that should be scarier than overt bias that you can call BS on as soon as you see it. It's the subtlety, it's the subliminal nature of what they're able to put in your search results that I believe is far more concerning than anything overt. So we'll see what happens with Google Gemini and where they go. Meanwhile, if you're thinking, oh, well, what about Microsoft? if Google's not working out, what does Microsoft have to offer? There's this. let's check this out in full screen view here. As of September 2023, inside the US, all racial and ethnic minority groups who are rewards eligible combined earn $1.007 total pay for every $1 earned by the US rewards eligible white employees, okay? So they're actively saying the pay for minority groups or affinity groups, whatever leftist dogma trigger language you want to use, they're going to be paid more than the white employees. We've heard so often about these complaints of like gender pay gaps and racial pay gaps and disparities, and instead of just evening the playing field, which I would argue was evened a long time ago, but we won't, I guess, delve into that right now, they're gonna discriminate actively against their white employees by paying them less, and they're admitting it straight to your face. Now, is this even legal? No, it's not legal. I don't know where within the Civil Rights Act it says you are allowed to do this with your employees, but Microsoft is actively admitting to the public in their diversity and inclusion report that they are paying minority employees more than they are paying white employees. And people say that you are a crazy tinfoil hat conspiracy theorist for saying that the next line of discrimination is actively against white people. And I'm gonna get called a bootlicker and a coon and an Uncle Tom for saying what is written very clearly for your own eyes to see, that white people are actively being discriminated against and paid less. Come on, y'all. It's right here. All in the name of pay equity, which is not even equity at all because it's not bringing about the same outcomes, but I digress. Here we are. Google's doing it. Microsoft is doing it. I'm sure Amazon's doing it. Your American Express is doing it. All of our central banking systems are doing it. Coca-Cola's doing it. Walmart's doing it. I could give you a list of just every single corporation that you know actively engaging in discrimination, and they're doing it, A, because this is what they believe, and this is the new agenda for the day. They're doing it because of ESG and the fact that they get higher scores for doing this to you. And honestly, I feel like they're doing this to like destabilize us in some way. I don't know how this can logically be done. They don't care if we're destabilized so long as they're making profit at the end of the day. And we know that these companies are just owned by even bigger corporations, and these even bigger corporations have told us straight up, we know how to make companies comply to our political agenda, and that's exactly what we're going to do. Larry Fink, the CEO of BlackRock, said, you know what? He essentially admitted to bullying the companies that BlackRock owns into supporting this political ideology, which is reinforced by ESG, which is everything you see on the basis of gender and sexuality and race. So if you start seeing all these different companies, from Microsoft down to the, I don't know, Nestle chocolate bar you're eating, talking about discriminating against white people, this is why. And it is the new future. So Taylor, everything is looking up for you, I think.
I mean, if you're starting a white rights movement, then maybe it will be looking up for me. But absent of that, I don't think it's looking too good. And I wonder what you think is the breakdown between is it more so the ideological capture of these institutions? I think I saw a graphic floating around Twitter today or yesterday that was listing the percentage of donations in favor of one party or another by employees of Apple, of employees of Google, and companies like Microsoft, et cetera. Basically, take your pick of any company in Silicon Valley. And it's almost like 95%, 99% to 1 in terms of who's donating in favor of Democrats versus Republicans. So there's evidence of the ideological capture, as though we needed any. And then on the other side, you have the ESG. And that seems to have created an environment where these companies are acting less so in the interest of profitability and creating value to their shareholders, and more so in the interest of making available capital to themselves that they can only get by getting a high ESG score. I mean, this page that we're seeing from this Microsoft report is just that. It's a DEI report. Well, what are they generating a DEI report for? And who's going to look at that report? It's going to be their overlords who are going to give them an ESG score that's going to say, did you tick all the boxes of diversity like we wanted you to? Therefore, we can give you these better interest rates, or we can give you access to this capital to grow your business. And it's created this perverse incentive to where used to you would have to create a business that generates products and services that add value to your market and add value to your shareholders by providing value to people. And now we've created an environment where you don't have to worry as much about profitability. You just have to worry about getting a good ESG scores, and then that can be overcome. Your lack of profitability, and I'm thinking of like the Bud Light scenario, the Target, the Disneys, that you can overcome that by this access to capital, by having these overlords who have these billions and billions of dollars that they can make available to you if you just have the right ESG score. So I'm increasingly leaning up towards the latter, that it is the ESG scores that are motivating all this. But it's clear that there's also a ton of ideological capture in these institutions, but I'm curious where you see that breakdown.
Yeah, dude, I think it's literally the perfect storm here. It's these corporations working along with the government because somehow our politicians are entering government as public servants and leaving millionaires. And they know that they can work together to push a certain ideology, keep the corporations in power, keep certain people in government in power, and then everybody ends up rich on their end. Meanwhile, the people who happen to be going into these positions of working at corporations and working in government have received an extremely propagandized education. And here are some of the numbers on like the employees who are going and working at these major corporations so that you guys can see this. Google, over 13,000 employees donated to Democrats in 2020. Only about 368 donated to the GOP. Apple, 4,134 employees donate to Democrats, around 300 to the GOP. Meta, 4,000 to Democrats, around 500 to the GOP. And in 2022, a whopping 99.73% of Twitter employees donated to Democrats. So clearly there's ideological capture within the just employment, probably the executives who are working at these companies. And that's perfect because the ESG stuff that they're injecting, these executives will already agree with. So they'll feel as though they're doing the right thing. They can virtue signal towards the public with what their companies are doing. And then it all works out in this perfect storm of keeping certain people in power, lining their pockets, and making sure corporations grow to be richer and more powerful, even though they themselves don't even care about the political agenda that they are begging you to adhere to. They just care about their own power. Yeah. At the end of the day, it's not going to be these back and forth culture things that we're talking about, even though they are very important. It's going to be the damn corporations. They're buying everything up underneath our noses. And I cannot express that enough. Like the camera that I'm talking to you on right now, probably owned by BlackRock. The lights I'm using, probably owned by BlackRock. The microphone, BlackRock. The food I ate this morning, BlackRock. The phone that I spoke to you on, BlackRock. Everything. The car that I will drive to go buy my groceries that are owned by BlackRock will be owned by BlackRock. The road that I drive on to get there will be owned by BlackRock. It's going to be literally everything. And meanwhile, they're telling you how to think while they buy up every single product so that you don't even have the option to choose. There is no thinking if you have no choice. It's crazy. Anyways.
They're doing it all too with our own money, largely because it's your own retirements, your own ETF investments. If you're buying into like the Vanguards or the BlackRock ETFs, then it's literally your own money that they're using to extort you or extort companies to impose this ideology on you and all of society. So I don't know how they're pulling this off, and it's utterly insane. And my brother and I were texting the other day, and he's asking me, like, have you looked into any alternative investments? If you have money to invest, like, where should I put it? Because it seems like if you go to any like Edward Jones or whatever, the first thing they point you to is like either Vanguard or BlackRock, and that is exactly who is perpetuating this ESG madness. And last thought on this is, if clearly we know there's ideological capture in the institutions, like we've talked about at the top of these corporations and such, but there's also the ESG stuff. But what's motivating them to the BlackRocks of the world to make the ESGs such as they are? Like, do you think that those people are ideologically captured, or do you think that they've just found this diverse DEI ideology a useful tool to force people into doing their will, to create discord, to create instability, a la who's the Yuri Bezmenov, and to sort of destabilize our free society, and so that they can bring in a new one world order, if we dare open that conversation.
Right. I think it's a little bit of both, but I'd imagine that the politicians who are pushing the hardest for the ESG are the ones who are going to put the corporations in the best position in the future, and the ones who are making the biggest promises to corporations to put them in the best position in the future. So you're going to go to whatever side, whatever, ideological bubble is deciding that they're going to do the best for you. And if that happens to be left-leaning ideology, then yeah, your corporations are going to start to look super, super woke, which is exactly what's happening right now. It's why you're getting cereal boxes with pronoun choices on them, and Skittles making their Skittles white in the name of Pride Month or whatever. That's why all of this stuff is being rolled out, and you get your Black History Month websites for like Target and Netflix and all this stuff, because those are the people who are going to help them the most as these mega corporations grow and grow and grow. Now, we're going to move on, because I could keep talking about this for a very long time, and I will not. We'll save that for another time. I levied some criticism to the political left on this channel, and now I must do so to the right. We talked about Democrats rolling out a hip-hop task force in the name of racial equity and doing something for Black people. We spoke about Joe Biden visiting a Black family, 2 sons and a father, and sitting down and eating fried chicken with them while they talked about their schooling. And now we have this clip out of Fox News after Donald Trump has rolled out his little Trump sneakers, which are, quite frankly, ugly sneakers, okay? And I know there are a lot of sneakerheads in the Black community. Those are ugly sneakers, okay? So I'm going to put that out there right now. But here's what Fox News had to say to Black voters about Trump's sneakers.
Even the sneaker thing. I was on social media last night. Very interesting, as you see Black support eroding from Joe Biden. This is connecting with Black America because they love sneakers. They're into sneakers. They love this is a big deal, certainly in the inner city. So when you have Trump roll out his sneaker line, they're like, wait a minute, this is cool. He's reaching them on a level that defies and is above politics. The culture always trumps politics. And Trump understands culture like no politician I've ever seen.
Question for you on that point, though.
Yeah.
Will the people that are excited about the sneakers and excited about Donald Trump, will that translate into them going out and voting for Donald Trump?
Well, anybody willing to put $400 down for a pair of sneakers? Yeah, I think that's commitment and love. It's
hope
something.
You're right.
It's something. It's affection. Even the sneaker thing.
All right. All right, guys. All right, guys. Oh, okay. First of all, I think there are lots of Black people who are deciding now that they are not going to go after Joe Biden in this next election. Are they doing so because Donald Trump released a sneaker line? I would hope not. And this sort of low ball way he talks about Black people as if seeing a sneaker is going to get you to go to the ballot box and cast a vote kind of blows my mind a little bit. Doesn't really blow my mind, because we've seen this like sort of talk in reference to Black people for a very long time, but typically it comes from left-leaning people who are like, oh, well, voter ID laws are racist because Black people don't know how to get a driver's license, or how do they even know how to electronically vote? They don't know how to use cell phones. Typically, you hear that from left-leaning people. To hear it from somebody who's saying Black people are going to vote because they're sneakerheads is just like, oh my gosh. Please, if Black people in the inner city are going to head to the ballot box and do something in this next election, it is because left-leaning policies are ruining the inner city. The education is abysmal. What's happening with law enforcement is abysmal. The smash and grabs, the robberies, the guns, the gang violence, these things are horrible. I don't think some red, white, and gold sneakers are what is influencing people in the inner city to go out and vote. And this view in at least this one man's view, I don't want to make this characteristic of like all of Fox News, but the fact that they're entertaining this conversation in the first place is a little mind-blowing to me. People in the inner city are normal people just like everybody else, and they're just as appalled at what is happening in their cities as anybody would be in any community in the United States. And they're so often characterized as, you know, just being left off to the side or maybe uneducated on these things that people may think that sneakers is what's going to bring them to the ballot box. I can guarantee you it's far more important issues. And if you hear from Black people who are actually being interviewed on whether or not they're going to vote for Trump or Biden, a lot of them are saying Trump, and they're saying because he speaks the truth. He calls it like he sees it. I am worried when I go to the gas station in the morning to get to work that I can't afford to get my car from point A to point B. I'm worried because I can't afford groceries anymore, or inflation is really ruining my time here. Or he did a really good job with COVID or calling out the government. There's a ton of different things that I think people are far more concerned about than what is on your feet. And the fact that he thinks sneakers is what's going to change the Black vote in America, particularly in the inner city. Oh, gosh.
So are you meaning to tell me that you're not trying to cop a pair of the January 6s this election season?
Yes, I do mean to tell you that. Those sneakers are ugly as hell, first of all. And even if the inner city was so consumed with sneakers that would be the thing that changes their vote, which, you know, for some, it very well might be. I think there are some people who would see a sneaker and go, oh, that's cool. He made a sneaker, and that's the one thing that I remember about him. Those people probably aren't voting, for one. And if they truly were sneakerheads, they'd know that's an ugly-ass sneaker.
I mean, they're very, like, Trumpish, right? I had the privilege of staying at the Trump Hotel in Vegas one time, and I was not sure what to expect, but the design is very much like gaudy. Just everything's golden and glamorous, at least in like the sensibilities of glamour of, I don't know, a certain maybe antiquated type. It's kind of like a low level view of this fanciness, and you just put it gold, make it fancy looking. And I feel like the sneakers kind of reflect that a little bit. But I think you're right to distinguish, right, between, I don't know that Trump is necessarily the one who is having the intent of, I'm going to swing the Black vote with these sneakers, right. But the Fox News host himself to make that insinuation so overtly over the airwaves is kind of just beyond the pale. But I will say Trump does have a little bit of a track record of making interesting merch or campaign items. I remember back last election cycle, I got a very big kick out of his making Trump plastic straws in the midst of the paper straw debate that was plaguing all of our major cities and still does to this day. I was just in New York City and they were giving us paper straws, and oh my gosh, I'm glad I'm out of there now. But just the fact that he was smart enough to go after that, I thought was amusing. It's obviously not like an election swinging thing. So I think the media, even in favor of Trump, is taking this too seriously. And I think people probably on Twitter are taking it too seriously as well.
Yeah, 100%. A little bit too much. I wish that guy, I forget what his name is, but he's on Fox News quite a bit as like their cultural finger on the pulse guy. Fox News should work on that, 100%. Maybe get somebody who has their finger closer to the pulse of culture to have that conversation. And please, before you do a segment like that, consult one Black person, just one. I think you honestly could have gone on the street and picked one Black person. It doesn't matter what political affiliation they were. It doesn't matter how old they were. It doesn't matter any. You could have picked a 5-year-old Black kid and been like, should we do this segment on Fox News? What do you think about this? And they would have told you it was a bad idea.
You could have picked half a Black person and you would have told them.
You could have picked me, half a Black person. And yes, 50% of me would have told you that was a bad idea. And the other 50% of me would have been also wise enough to know that that was indeed a bad idea. And he's not going to live down that segment. It's almost like the Laura Ingraham clip of her, like, of him and her going back and forth about You on Netflix. And he's like, You on Netflix. And she's like, what about me? I've never seen anything like that. He's like, no, the show is called You. And she continues to miss it over and over again. It's one of those clips. Anyways.
There's a scene in Rush Hour 3, which is one of my favorite. I mean, Rush Hour 1 and 2 are my favorites, but he's like, Chris Tucker is talking to this, like, you know, Chinese martial arts master, and I think his name is, I can't remember if it was like Fook Yu or something like that, and he's like looking for his brother Fook Mi, and they just have this big exchange where Chris Tucker thinks he's like saying Fook Yu to him, and he's like going back to like Fook Yu. And anyway, that was what that Laura Ingraham clip reminds me of.
Yeah, honestly, it's just exactly like that, and you just can't make this stuff up. Now, you know, speaking of Netflix and Netflix shows, I did decide to go and watch the first episode of Avatar: The Last Airbender. There's been a lot of conversation surrounding this show because for those of you who are not fans of it, I'll give you like a brief synopsis of Avatar: The Last Airbender. It came out, I want to say, in early 2000s, maybe the late aughts, and this was this cartoon surrounding, you know, 4 different nations. You have the water, the earth, the fire, and the air, and they've been thrown into, you know, disillusion and war, and they're searching for this avatar, which is the one kid who has mastered all these different 4 elements, and he's the one who's going to bring peace amongst these 4 nations. That's basically what the cartoon is initially about. Now, the first news that we got of Avatar: The Last Airbender being made into live action from Netflix was that Sokka, one of the pivotal characters, who is known as being a sort of rough around the edges, sexist brother, was going to be not sexist. They were going to tone down the sexism in his character. And this should tell you that these people are not going to adhere to the original source material, and they don't have a reverence for the original source material. If you have a character in a show who is racist, sexist, homophobic, rough around the edges, mean, more than likely it's part of their character for a reason. And in Sokka's respect, I guess, for this show, his sexism is meant to be something that he overcomes. He is blatantly sexist towards his sister Katara in the show. It moves forward the plot. It's actually how they find the main character, Aang, who is the Avatar. And sorry, spoiler alert for anybody who hasn't watched this show. You've had time. You've had over a decade to watch this show. So if I'm giving you spoilers right now, I apologize, but come on. So Sokka's sexism is actually a plot point that's pretty pivotal, not only to his character development, but to the plot development and moving forward the story. And they decided we were going to make this character less sexist because just sexism is not for the screen in 2024. And this does not make sense to me. For how are we supposed to have dynamic characters if they don't have any flaws? So I knew coming out of the gate, before this live action was even released, there were going to be some major problems. On top of that, the original creators of the Avatar: The Last Airbender left the project, and they essentially published this open letter saying, you know, we were extremely excited to work on this live action with Netflix. It was so cool that they brought us into the fold here, that they were allowing us as the original creators to inject our vision. And not just that, enlighten them with the vision of how they see this playing out in a live action format. And they end up leaving this show over creative differences. And they essentially said, you know what Netflix puts out as a live action version of this show, it might be good, but it is by no means what we intended the live action to be as the original creators of the show. So that should tell you everything you need to know. So I go in and watch the first episode of this show, expecting what I was expecting, but trying to, you know, hold back my bias. And I will say, if you're pretty unfamiliar with Avatar: The Last Airbender, this won't be the worst thing you've ever watched. There's a lot of cool elements to the show. They actually show you, you know, what the Fire Nation does and how fire really affects people, and they take a more adult route with some of the action and the violence in the show, and that can be quite cool. But it's clear that they do not trust the audience. Now, when you hear from a group of people who are recreating something and they say, we're going to get rid of the sexism or the racism or the homophobia or whatever the case may be, it's because they don't trust you as an audience member to be able to interpret what you're seeing with your own eyes. If you hear a character make a sexist comment, you're not thinking that's how the show feels about women. That's how the show feels about you. You're thinking that particular character has a thought. And you move on with your life and trust that the show will take that on, or it will be interpreted in some way, or maybe the character never grows out of it. But Netflix has shown that they do not trust their audience to be able to make those judgments. And in the same way that they don't trust you to make judgments on the ideological front, they don't trust you to understand the very plot that they're putting forward in Avatar. The amount of just blatant exposition and explanation of what is happening in the plot and how characters feel, rather than letting you view it and watch it with your own two eyes, is actually astounding to me. And it just goes to show that I think we're entering this era in entertainment where you are going to have creators that do trust the audience and have creators that don't. And the creators that don't are going to flop. This is getting super negative reviews. Here says Netflix's live-action Avatar: The Last Airbender fails to capture the spirit of the original series due to extremely poor writing and bland visuals. Many people are coming out and saying that there are just inconsistencies all over the place and that things are just not adding up and not making sense. And the fact that they feel the need to explain the story to you as you're watching it should tell you everything that you need to know. Plus, like, the Avatar: The Last Airbender has this very cool intro that you get to watch in the beginning where they sort of detail and set the scene for what this story is about. They redid the intro in this weird way that makes no sense, and then they have this grandma character later on in the first episode give you the actual normal intro to the show as it should be halfway through the episode. Guys, I don't know what's going on. As soon as you hear the original creators have left a project, you should just exit out right there. You should probably go, you know what? If they didn't have enough respect to allow the people who originally created the material to be a part of what they're making, then I don't have enough respect for them to watch it. And we're going to see things like this continue to happen. Harry Potter's being remade to a TV series, and luckily they're allowing, I shouldn't even say that, but luckily they're having J.K. Rowling executive produce on the show. That's a fantastic sign that something good is going to be done. They're recreating Fairly Oddparents. Nickelodeon is doing another sequel series this spring where Cosmo and Wanda come out of retirement to grant wishes for a 10-year-old girl named Hazel. And if we know Nickelodeon, I'm scared to watch this. They're like so obsessed with LGBTQ this and Pride that and Black History Month this, that Hazel is probably going to be like a 10-year-old trans girl, and Cosmo and Wanda are going to use their fairy magic to make her into a boy. That's what I'm anticipating Nickelodeon is going to do here. Plus, for the anime fans out there, Naaruto's getting remade too, also into live action. I don't know what's going on with Hollywood not being able to create something original, just make new stories. We're doing live action recreations of everything that was ever good instead of looking back at those sort of old nostalgic pieces of media and entertainment and asking what made them good. What makes people want to watch this? They're not doing that. Instead, they're going, if people want to watch that and not what we're creating now, we should remake it and inject our own agenda into it, which is exactly the problem in the first place and why people are turning to older media. And there's a story that's highlighted exactly that. They went through streaming services to see what the top watched shows were, and time again, it is not the original content that is on these streaming services. It's shows that were made in the early 2000s or the early 2010s, and people are turning to those rather than the new original created content or the live action remakes that are being made. And the reason why is that there wasn't a ton of agenda in these old shows. They have the nostalgia factor. They're not politically correct. They're real reflections of the world and characters, and people have flaws and things that we don't deem to be okay for modern audiences. And people want that. So instead of actually engaging in new material that has lost all creativity, is super PC, and is essentially telling the audience we hate you and we don't trust you to watch something and understand it, they're turning to old school entertainment that trusted its audience, that cared about a good story with all the flaws, with all the bumps in the road, with all the sexism and homophobia and whatever you want to call it. And they're turning to what's real, what feels like a more real depiction of life, and they're longing for that. And instead of giving them that, you recreate it with your own new agenda. So I think this is just going to continue to happen in terms of entertainment. So we have that to look forward to. The good news is when true original stories are made that are good, they are, I think, rising to the top because they have no choice but to in the dumpster fire that is Hollywood entertainment.
The ESG's tentacles reach even our favorite cherished stories, at least the remakes. I'm grateful that we got stories like Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter, Gladiator, etc. made when we did. I mean, those are like some of my favorites because we got them pre whatever the hell era that we're in now, where everything's just trash and no one wants to watch it. I just saw a story about the sequel to the new Gladiator movie, and I tweeted, they're asking like, what do you think about this? Are you excited? And I'm like, it's 2024. I'm not excited about any remakes anymore. Yep. I dread them. I hope that they don't happen. Amazon Prime's Lord of the Rings Reincarnation or whatever, Rings of Power, was just atrocious, and I can't bring myself to even want to watch season 2 that's coming out soonish. Halo, I was excited marginally whenever I grew up playing Halo. I've been playing that game for like 20 years, and it has really cool lore. I've listened to some of the audiobooks, and they brought that to life last year. It was just horrendous. I can't bring myself to watch season 2, though they claim it's going to be better. It just time and time again. I was on Twitter the other day. I came across a clip of Lord of the Rings receiving its Oscars or like the final Oscar that it received in 2003 when Return of the King swept the Oscars, won 11, and Steven Spielberg read who the winner was. And I was just like, man, what happened to that era of Hollywood where these great films, great stories, great source material was able to be brought to life in a faithful way and done well in a way that was just undeniable to like all the resources and capability and creativity that Hollywood had to offer was funneled into bringing some of the greatest source material of all time to life. And that's what it should be. It should be as simple as that. And for whatever reason, we've lost that, and I hope we find it again soon.
Yeah, I'm going to go on like a weird tangent and talk about our founding fathers for a second, which is so weird.
Oh, please.
So,
I love this.
It's kind of cringe red meat. But when our founding fathers were like taking on creating the American government and governing us as people and taking on these positions of power, if you go back and look at some of their old writings, there is a distinct anxiety in almost all of their writings about, oh my gosh, I'm taking on what is a really like deep and sincere responsibility. I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this properly. I'm going to make so many mistakes. I hope people, view them as what they are, which is human error, and we're all fallible. And I hope I do this to the best of my abilities and set the world on a good trajectory for everything that comes after me. And there was a general sentiment, I think, amongst people that was your view towards the world. You came into the world as a human being with all of your faults, with all the things that were done wrong at the time, and you wanted to make the world better. And you wanted to show a reverence for the people who came before you, the things that they created, the things that they do well. Now you have these people enter Hollywood, and they're like, Tolkien, I can do better than whatever it is that he created. He was such a racist misogynist. Oh my gosh, Roald Dahl, Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. What a racist. The Oompa Loompas are clearly a product of colonialism. I can create this better and we can inject more diversity. There is no anxiety of like, am I going to do this properly? People love this dearly and they have a deep respect for it. And clearly it speaks to something deeper within human beings. And I need to be able, in whatever power I have, to maintain the goodness that was created that made this thing so popular, made this so wonderful. Where is that anxiety gone? Because y'all need it back. I know we're all trying to fight anxiety and we all have it and we're all like seeing our therapist. Y'all need a little bit of anxiety because you have way too much audacity in the recreations of these things. They truly walk into these things and go, Avatar: The Last Airbender, I can make it better. We don't need the original creators who made this wonderful thing that stood the test of time. I can do it better in 2024. Y'all need a little bit of anxiety. Y'all need to question yourselves a little bit and think that maybe you don't have what it takes to make something as amazing as what they did in regard to everything in life. If you're going to try to emulate something or recreate it, I think the very first thought you should have is, what makes this something worth emulating and recreating? What is it that made this thing so powerful that I am now here in 2024 recreating it for another group of people in hopes that they carry it on to the next generation? And nobody's asking themselves that. They're going, let's point out everything they did wrong first. And then we're going to improve that. And then if there's nothing left of the story and it's just a skeleton of what it once was, that's what we're going to put out to the public. And then when they don't like it, we're going to call them racist, sexist, homophobes for not liking it and blame them for not enjoying the thing that we created. For we are the gods of entertainment and virtue and morals. Give me a break.
Oh, that's my favorite rant of yours ever. Yeah. And what you're calling anxiety, I think, is also, or it follows from like a healthy anxiety, a healthy fear of the thing that you are stewarding. If you have the rights to recreate a cherished piece of intellectual property, is a reverence for that source material and a humility that this has endured the test of time because it has connected with so many people because it has a value that transcends what I have heretofore been capable of. And the reason I have been blessed with the opportunity to work on this project is because this has intrinsic value. So my job is to steward that intrinsic value and hopefully deliver that faithfully to the world through a different medium. It's not to inject my own creativity and my own thoughts. Your creativity is bringing that creativity to life, not replacing it or using it as a veneer or vessel for it. And it's just part and parcel of this arrogant, like, this is year zero, I am the enlightened sense of morality that we see throughout Hollywood. Like we just saw in Disney come out, their CEO come out and say, yeah, we're not going to be political anymore. But nobody believes that. They just look similar to Google with their new AI imaging. You got your hand caught in the cookie jar because you're so arrogant and so possessed by your own moralistic me first ideology. You think that, the world was invented on day one when you came into it, that you're blinded and out of touch with reality. And in Disney's case, when they say we're not going to be political anymore, that's just because their ideology is so thick that they don't think they're being political when they're pushing all this moralistic BS based on their new ideas onto us. And it's so self-evident in their failures and in people's frustrations with the things that they're doing. And yet on and on it goes. And I think all we want is common sense and good art and good stories, but apparently that's too much to ask these days.
It is too much to ask, which is why you get, a suicide warning before you watch Romeo and Juliet, which I can't think of a better example of doing exactly that, looking at something that's great and stood the test of time and going, it shows suicide, we should warn people about that, and then ruining it. Ruining the very story itself in your endeavor to make something better that was already wonderful in the first place. Okay, we're going to get into Super Chats. I've been yapping today. Sorry, guys.
All right, it's good yapping. It's good yapping. Daniel Santana, as usual, was our first Super Chatter today. He says, Happy Friday.
Awesome. Happy Friday, Daniel Santana. We appreciate you.
And he was quick today. Like, we were live and the Super Chat was there. So
Daniel's
shout out to
chomping
Daniel
at the bit.
Having the quick trigger finger.
Shout out.
Oddparents says, it's starting to sound like, to me, giving women all these rights in the first place was a domino effect for all of this now. You could be a nice young man trying to make better of himself, and women will still say no, as in the clip.
I think we're in an adjustment period. I think women deserve their rights, okay? You would find yourself in a whole other slew of problems had that not happened. So we're not going to do the Pearl Davis don't give women rights thing on this show because we don't agree with that.
Kwazakule Mafeka says, hi guys, been meaning to thank Taylor for almost perfectly saying my name last time. It's a Zulu name from South Africa. You guys are the best. Love y'all. Well, I hope I said it the same as I did last time.
It's like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get with that one. Same thing with my name. So I'm here for it.
Yeah. We all got weird names. Trandall's pretty uncommon, though it's only 2 syllables.
Yeah,
so I guess, I get Trandall a lot.
Trandall.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, thank you. I appreciate your appreciation, and I appreciate you. Will Davey says, I get the feeling that all those aren't the best representations of people today. It seemed like a party that wasn't attracting the brightest individuals.
100%. You have to think about that too. Whenever you do a study, you got to look at the population of people that they studied and take that into account. And if it's a bunch of 20-year-olds out on a Saturday night at the club or whatever, more than likely you're going to find people with that specific mentality. You have to think about, like, where the girl you want, where is she? Is she out doing that? Maybe. I go out with my best friend on Saturday nights and we go out and dance and do stuff like that. But I will say our value system is a rare one to be seen out on the dance floor. So you do have to ask yourself, where is the person who has my mindset and values? Where are they right now? What are they doing? Because they're probably not out and about doing that sort of stuff, or at least not in large quantity.
Yeah, y'all pull up to my church on Sunday morning and ask the women there what they think. I think you might get some different answers.
Right, I don't think they're
just
clubbing.
Saying. Keith just sends an emoji that says thank you. Thank you, Keith.
Thank you, Keith.
Leah Menezes says, I think women saying they hate men is just a trauma response from negative experiences with men. Hopefully most will move past that.
Yeah. And, I struggle to call it a trauma response because I do think we throw that word around pretty flippantly, but I understand exactly what you're saying. I do think it's more of a reflexive answer to the question rather than one that is given with much thought.
Indeed. V says, I think some women, too, take personal bad experiences with men and project that into other potential relationship choices.
Yes, 100%.
P.S. Tyler loved the beard.
100%. Tyler loved the beard. Love the beard, Tylenol. Yeah, no, you have to think your first relationship with a man is going to be extremely important. And for a lot of women, the very first relationship they have with a man is with their father. If you don't have that, that sets you on a bad trajectory for your view towards men. Then you get your first boyfriend, and the lack of the father makes you less inclined to make a good choice on the first boyfriend. So now you've dated a manipulative cheater, drug addict, or whatever for your first boyfriend, and you go, my dad sucked, my boyfriend sucked, and then you go on to have that self-fulfilling prophecy of I hate men, they're all disgusting, and then you're spewing that out into the world and getting it back in return, and you just have to get a bird's eye view of your life, your experiences, and the experiences of others to realize that it's not true that all men suck, even if your experiences with men have not been ideal. And take some accountability for your own choices. Even though you might have been set up for failure with the daddy issues and everything, as we all experience to some extent, you got to take accountability for your own discernment.
Hear, hear. John Barry says, great to catch a live show. You need to get the Cartier family on the show or go on their podcast. Their stories like yours from far left to far right.
Huh, I've never heard of them.
Far right to the right.
I'll have to look them up. Cartier family.
I haven't heard of them, yeah.
Me neither.
Add it to the super chat suggestion box.
Yes,
always
indeed.
Otaku69 again says, I mean, is he wrong, Amala? Don't some black people stay supporting BLM and Joe Biden? Those same black people seethe for reparations. This is probably no different. They'll support for a shoe.
I don't know. I think there's something to be said about generations of American transgressions convincing you to vote for the people who are going to make good on them versus somebody puts out a sneaker, I'm going to vote for that guy. Now, I'm not saying that there are not just people of all races that would do something like this, and you could do some sort of kitschy novelty joke for each race and find a few people who go, oh, that's cool that he understands that about Asians or Hispanics or whatever, and I'm gonna vote for him for that. I'm just saying it's not the vast majority. And even like black people who we view to be, I don't know, less intelligent or whatever, they're still saying, oh yeah, no, I'm gonna vote for Trump because I feel like he's more real and that he comes off as more genuine and he's not falling down flights of stairs as he's trying to engage with the public, and he actually knows what he ate for breakfast. They might say it in a way that makes them sound less intelligent, but they're noticing the very same real things that everybody else is noticing.
Joy says, Amala, I loved this song rewrite. It was the first time I've heard the term outrage porn. What commentators would you put into that category?
Ooh,
it's
gosh.
a struggle to stay informed, but also keep my sanity.
Y'all want me to
Gonna
spit
put some
heat?
folks on blast?
Y'all want me to get in trouble? I'm not going to throw shade today on today's podcast. You'll be able to tell. That's what I'll tell you. You'll be able to tell who is just trying to make you upset, hopefully, because they won't be offering you anything in the way of value, and I think their sheer goal will be just to explain to you how upset they are about things. That's all I will say.
Here. I've caught myself humming that funny thing. I didn't know the original song, by the way, but I've caught myself humming it since I've listened to it.
Thanks.
Your version several times throughout this week. So
Thanks, Taylor.
V well done. If y'all haven't heard it yet, Amala dropped a song on the channel this past week, so go find it. It's that funny feeling we write. Bo Burnham. Hey, whenever Farley says, thanks so much for your videos. They are hilarious and insightful. I wish you a wonderful weekend.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Tia, a lot of E's in there, says, Amala, the elite politicians see us as ants on a molehill. And honestly, the way they put out the way that the population has voted in the past easily influenced. I don't see us as coming off as any more intelligent than they believed us to be.
I think like the cracks are starting. I don't know. I'm seeing a whole lot of people getting really fine-tuned into recognizing propaganda. What's unfortunate is that it's coming from like all angles now, so it's kind of hard. Like there doesn't seem to be a super great option, if I'm being honest, but I know where I'm headed. I know what's better. I think a lot of people are waking up, but what we're waking up to is a mountain that seems very difficult to summit, if that makes sense. Like the more you peel back the layers on this, the crazier it seems, and the less achievable it seems to overcome a lot of what's happening on with like corporations and politicians. And when you realize that like everybody's sort of in on it kind of thing, it's crazy.
It is, but truth's still truth, and we're gonna stay here speaking it and see where that takes us. So.
Yes, we will. And
even if it's on a stinking ship.
And even if the larger world is kind of like going crazy and it seems like you can't change things, there are always things that you can do in your own personal life to make a better situation for yourself, even when the world is crazy. I've been having many a conversation about like, what's it going to be like when I have kids? And if the public education system is not good, the private education system is not good, how do I go about using every single resource that I have to create a micro school with other parents who want to do the same for their children and have them have a good life? How do I go about, planting food in my own backyard for my own family that doesn't have some of the garbage that your regular food has in the grocery store? What do I do to stay away from some of these like major corporate interests in my own personal life? What are little things that I can do on my behalf to simply make my life better in the wake of everything that's happening right now? And you always have that to fall back on, even if everything else seems a little crazy.
Just put me in the matrix already says, hey guys, one word, hoflation. meaning our grandpas had to do 10 times less to get grandma. Today, men have to do 10 times more to get a woman. Not every woman. That is 10 times less of a woman than before. Hashtag facts.
You know, that's just how that's just life. That's how things progress, and that's how times change. And where things were easier in the past, you know, things are harder now in many other respects. I just think there's something to be said for comparing times and like thinking about what was good in them, what we can conserve in our own lives. But it can become an exercise in futility sometimes if you're just constantly in that mindset. Focus on what you can do now to put yourself in a good position, because all you have is right now, this very moment.
Oaxaca, Los Angeles says ESG/BlackRock is like a self-checkout at grocery stores. Select what you need but can't afford, then you must work for the store by scanning your own items for which you will be paying them for. Make it make sense.
Whoa. You're taking me on a loop on that one. I do have to sit and think about that for a little bit. Hold on. Okay, hold on. I might need you to say that again. Yes.
All right. ESG BlackRock is like a self-checkout at a grocery store. Select what you need but can't afford. Then you must work for the store by scanning your own items, which you will be paying them for. Make it make sense.
Okay.
So
I
you're
think
paying
I somewhat
the
get what
store
you're
in
saying.
your labor for the privilege of also paying for your items.
Yes, kind of like we're feeding into the own system, our own system that is eventually exploiting us, and we're feeding into our own exploitation, I think is what is being said there. And if that is what is being said there, I completely agree. How you get out of it, I don't know. Sorry.
Also, yeah, forget that self-checkout nonsense.
Yeah.
It's actually like it, because I don't like dealing with people and they're usually slower than me. So.
I like it when I have a few items, but then I'm like, oh man, I wonder what our world's going to look like in a little while. It's just natural. Like, obviously, a ton of stuff is going to get replaced by these sort of like self-checkout AI type things. Eventually, there's going to be no checkout. I think you're going to go into a store and pick up all your items, and they'll have some sort of... Yeah. Whole Foods, I think, does that. They have surveillance at the top of the ceiling, so you can walk into the store, grab what you need, and just walk out, and your bank is charged. So if you're worried about self-checkout, wait till you see what's coming next. There's gonna be
all you're
nothing.
going to do is think about what you want in your Neuralink while you explore the store with your Apple VR headset on, and then it's going to be delivered to you by drones.
Dude, it's very much true. They just said well, they were saying this. I have not seen confirmation that this is actually true or like a video, but the first Neuralink patient has apparently recovered fully and can control a mouse with his mind. So if you can do that, why wouldn't everything just arrive how it's supposed to arrive if you can just think about it and make it happen? Interesting.
Fun times, man. Fun times. Just put me in the Matrix already. Lol Taylor, what were you doing in Vegas at the Trump Hotel? Were you recreating the Hangover movie? Because that's what it sounds like to me, JK Broski. No, I was not. I was actually, I did like a bachelor weekend in Vegas with a couple of my friends. And so maybe kind of, but it was much more tame than the Hangover. And also, it was the Trump Hotel because it was cheaper than any of the hotels on the Strip for that weekend. And we were just driving out from LA. So
it's businessman.
Yeah, business decision. All right, Oaxaca again says, imagination is now gone because we used to be connected, creative, used our imagination. However, we are now entitled with AI.
Yeah, I mean, it's all, we can blame external things too, and like, it is us. We are a reflection of ourselves. So if the world is giving you vapid, mindless entertainment, it's probably because we're vapid and mindless. And I think one of the great struggles of today's generations and future generations are going to be like the people who see beyond that, but still have to live in the world as it is right now. And that has probably got to be an amount of suffering that I would not wish on anybody. There is an element of like ignorance being bliss. I would love to be one of those people who can just like mindlessly scroll for the rest of my life and never question the like reality that you're living in. But that's unfortunately not what has been bestowed upon many of us. And now we just have to watch as other people who make that decision allow these things to happen while while we do whatever it is that we do, which is why it's important that you just make your own little tiny communities and make it work. Go back. Luddites, as I said.
Yeah, I'm leaving for the wilderness.
The Luddites, yep. I'm going to Henry David Thoreau. I'm going to stop paying my taxes, be put in jail, and go out into the woods.
Megan here from Vegas. Love y'all, and just messaging to see how you guys pronounce my name. There's multiple ways. Are there multiple ways to pronounce Megan? Is this like Key and Peele, Megan?
Megan. Yeah, no, I didn't know that there was multiple ways to pronounce Megan.
Yeah, I mean, her YouTube name is literally just Megan. I have a cousin who spells it Meghan.
Yeah.
There's like sometimes with an A in there, Meagan.
Yeah,
but they're all Megan as far as I know.
As far as I know, too. They're all Megan.
Well, let us know if we got it right,
let us
I guess.
know.
Ataku again says, Abla, why don't you go ahead and hit some bodybuilding poses for us? I see those deltoids and triceps popping out.
Yo,
Strong women.
I've been going to the gym every single day, y'all. And it's what's annoying, not even annoying. This is obviously a very good thing. My arms grow like crazy. I don't know what it is. I used to have like really noodle arms, so now my arms grow a lot. But I'm there to grow my legs, and it's just not working. But obviously, I don't eat enough protein as you're supposed to eat. I can't. I'm working on it. It's really tough. I cannot do like the amount of protein in a day you're supposed to eat in order to actually have like muscle gains. So my body's just getting toner, but it's not growing in the way that I'm intending. So
I went to a farmer's market with Amla one time, and she got like 30 pounds of fruits. And I'm like, how do you eat this?
Dude,
how does anybody eat this much fruit and vegetables? Well, I mean, it's like, it's good, it's healthy, but good Lord. Yeah, you need some protein in that diet.
I know.
Eating 20 mangoes or whatever.
Yeah, it's not good. But I'm just like, I like eat intuitively. So I just like grab whatever I want to eat and then I eat it, whatever. And I'm like trying to purposefully have more protein, but it's just, the struggle is very much real. So I'm just going to have friggin' arms and no legs.
Is that like a girl thing too? Because I'm constantly trying to get my wife to eat more protein too, and she eats like a bird. It's like little crackers and peanut butter here and little stuff there. It's not like
I mean, dude, it's tough. I don't know. And you find yourself, the more you work out, obviously, the more you want to eat. Like your body is begging you, like, please eat more. And I can definitely eat more protein. But if you're supposed to eat like 20 grams more, so you're supposed to do a gram for every pound that you weigh, plus 20 grams on top of that if you like want to build muscle on a daily basis. Y'all got me messed up. I can't. My jaw's hurting from the thought of eating that much protein.
Gotta drink a lot of shakes, right?
Yeah,
I'm sure you think those are bad though.
Yeah, they just gross.
There's some good parts.
Yeah.
All right, Siliana91 says, this is my first time catching a live. I watch y'all's videos all the time while gaming online. I just want to say how refreshing this channel is. Keep up the good work.
Thank you. I'm glad that you guys are leaving this channel refreshed. That's how we feel when we get done with these lives. So it's great.
Yeah, cool to hear from a gamer. We love to hear what y'all are doing, whether forging weapons like our friend Celtic Blacksmith, who is our next super chatter. He says, y'all got me through cleaning my entire kitchen. So thanks for that. Okay, so doing something different today. Trump sneakers look like shit, but to each their own, read about Rome or whatever.
Yeah, to me, those are some ugly shoes, but it's okay. Yeah, to each their own. I heard somebody paid like $9,000 for those shoes. My goodness. Woof. I'll take $9,000 and turn that into a much better investment than those shoes. Ay.
Some of the satirical names about the shoes have been funny though. Like I said, the January 6s and the
air fraud ones.
Yeah. Oh dear.
Oh, that's really funny. Regardless of how you feel about what's going on right now, air fraud ones is funny. It's objectively funny.
Alas. And I think that was our last super chat of the day.
Okay, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you're having a fantastic Friday and that you have an even more fantastic weekend. If you like this video, like, subscribe, click the notification bell to be notified every single time we're live. That's Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 1 p.m. Pacific, 3 p.m. Central, 4 p.m. Eastern. Plus, we post videos for you guys every single day. Tomorrow's video, Saturday morning, is going to be Dr. Phil. We're going to be reacting to Dr. Phil, talking about the trans agenda and exposing some of the science and some of the medical practitioners who he believes are making the wrong decision, specifically in terms of trans children. So you have that to look out for. Of course, I have much to say on the topic, as I'm a yapper. If not anything else, I'm a yapper, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you have a fantastic weekend, and I will see you guys tomorrow. Bye.